I lived for 2 weeks in the bottom of the sea. The scariest thing I saw, and you're 60 feet down, it's night. You can't see a thing. You're alone in the ocean. And I took a big breath, and I went down, and I opened my eyes in the darkness with my flashlight, and I saw right in front of me this huge eyeball.
Entire islands vanishing into thin air, 30 whales mysteriously washing ashore dead, a remote island where people keep turning up dead. These are more dark and disturbing ocean mysteries that are impossible to solve. We've all heard about the lost city of Atlantis, but what about other islands that mysteriously vanish? One of the strangest cases in recent history is Sandy Island, which was charted back in 1774 by Captain James Cook. It appeared on maps for centuries, even being recorded on Google Maps as recently as 2012. But here's where it gets really weird. When Australian scientists went to find it that same year, 2012, they came up empty. They recorded ocean depths of over 4,300 feet or 1,310 meters where the island should have been, but no island, just deep water. So was Sandy Island ever really there? Some think it could have been a cartographer's error or a phantom island that only appeared on maps because of miscalculations or mistaken sightings, but with no answers and no island to show for it, Sandy Island is one of the strangest and eeriest mysteries of the Pacific. Koh Tao, or Turtle Island in the Gulf of Thailand, is known for its beautiful beaches, coral reefs, and resorts. It really does look like quite the getaway, but it's also sometimes referred to as Death Island. So how did it get that nickname? Well, it all started with a string of mysterious deaths. In 2012, a young man named Ben Harrington died after an apparent motorcycle accident on the island, but there was more to it. His wallet and watch were missing. His mother, of course, suspected foul play, especially after the coroner kind of hesitated to call it an accident. In 2014, two British backpackers, Hannah Withridge and David Miller, were found dead on the same beach where Ben had stayed 2 years earlier. Local police mishandled the crime scene and rushed to blame two migrant workers who were eventually convicted, but crucial evidence like DNA samples were never collected. As if that weren't disturbing enough, 2 weeks later another body turned up on that same beach. 24-year-old Luke Miller found at the bottom of a swimming pool. Then a woman vanished from a Koh Tao hostel, and 6 weeks later the body of Belgian tourist Elise Del Magni was found. Her body had been wrapped in t-shirts. Then in January of 2015, Christina Marion Ansley's body was discovered in a bungalow, but authorities waited days to conduct a post-mortem. The UK's coroner rejected the Thai results, citing incompetence. With no answers or closure, rumors of a serial killer family on the island started to spread, but till this day, we still don't know for sure. In 2015, something strange happened off the coast of Alaska when 30 whales stranded themselves on the shores of Kodiak Archipelago. Almost all of them died, and nearly every one of the whales was a fin whale. Experts also realized that the whales likely all died around the same time. Now, at first, scientists thought toxic algae might have caused it, but they quickly ruled that out because no other species of marine animals showed similar signs of death. A few months earlier, though, a mass die-off of birds occurred along the same coastline, but they weren't sure if the birds and the whales died from the same cause. It's possible that there were more dead whales out there that either got eaten by scavengers or drifted out of reach. On January 29, 1921, the Carroll A Deering, a schooner, was headed home to Virginia after a trip to Barbados. As it passed a light ship off the coast of North Carolina, the captain of the watch vessel noticed something odd. The crew of the Deering appeared to be wandering aimlessly on the deck, and when the lightship's overseer called out, a crew member yelled back saying they had lost their anchors. Just a few days later, another ship, the SS Lake Ellen, spotted the Carroll A Deering again. The captain of the Lake Ellen wrote in his log that the crew seemed to be acting strangely and that the ship was drifting off on a, quote, peculiar course. Then, 2 days later, the US Coast Guard discovered the Deering had washed up on North Carolina's Outer Banks. The weather was too bad for a full inspection, but they did notice that the Deering was missing its lifeboats. When the Coast Guard returned after the weather had cleared, they found something even stranger on the ship. Nothing but a full meal that was cooked, prepared, and perfectly laid out, sitting completely untouched, as if the crew had vanished in the middle of eating. All their personal items were also gone. It was like no one had ever been on board at all. Until this day, the mystery has never been solved. The lost continent of Mu, also known as Lemuria, is one of the most mysterious ocean myths. According to some theories, Mu is a massive civilization that existed in the Pacific Ocean between 10,000 and 50,000 years ago, home to over 60 million people. These people were believed to belong to a highly advanced culture known as the Nakal. The idea of Mu was first introduced by Augustus Leplongeon, a British-American writer, who argued that Egypt and Mesoamerica were created by survivors of this lost land. Later, James Churchward expanded on this theory, writing that Mu was located somewhere between Easter Island and the Marianas. Churchward claimed that the continent was destroyed by a series of catastrophic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. But modern geologists have strongly rejected this idea, pointing out that it's impossible for a continent to disappear so quickly. But even still, the legend of Mu persists to this day. The Black Sea, often referred to as both the inhospitable sea and the hospitable sea, is said to be a very mysterious place. This stretch of water has seen more than its fair share of strange sightings and unexplained disappearances. In 2000, for example, an explorer named Robert Ballard made a pretty fascinating discovery, finding evidence that a massive flood may have wiped out ancient civilizations in the Black Sea. Throughout the Middle Ages, sailors reported seeing mysterious whirlpools that would suddenly appear, even on calm waters, pulling ships and entire islands into the depths. The whirlpools were so feared that fishermen avoided the area altogether, believing that it was cursed. And even more recently, in 1945, 5 Soviet bombers vanished over the Black Sea, never to be seen again. A similar incident occurred in 1990 when a Greek plane disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Then in 1991, a Russian oil rig was found abandoned in the sea with all 80 workers missing and their possessions and half-eaten meals left behind. And these are just a handful of the mysterious things that have happened in the Black Sea. In October of 1988, 2 friends, Michael Calvin and John Blissett, set out from Fremantle, Australia on a luxury schooner called the Patanela. During the trip, Calvin sent a letter to his twin sister telling her how great the weather was and how much fun he and Blissett were having. They were also excited about starting their own charter business once they returned home after Christmas. Before they left, Calvin and Blissett even decided to put a message in a bottle to send out to sea, offering a free holiday on board their boat for anyone who found the letter. But the men were never seen or heard from again. The ship vanished off the coast of Sydney, but nearly 20 years later, in 2007, a woman named Cheryl Weidman found an old bottle while beachcombing, and inside was a note that read, "Hi there, out here in the lonely Southern Ocean, and thought we would give away a free holiday." The note also had Blissett's phone number and the Patanela's position when it was sent out. Till this day, though, the wreckage of the ship has never been found. In February of 1968, the USS Scorpion, a nuclear-powered submarine, left Norfolk, Virginia, headed for the Mediterranean. With nearly a decade of reliable service, there was no reason to suspect anything wrong would happen, but just a few months later, something did. On May 27, 1968, families waited for the Scorpion to return, but it never did. By October, the Navy found the wreckage on the ocean floor and found that all 99 men aboard had died. But there were no clear answers as to what had happened. In 1985, famous explorer Robert Ballard, again who would later discover the Titanic wreck, visited the Scorpion site, but even he couldn't solve the mystery. Over the years, several theories have been put forward. Some think the Scorpion was attacked by the Soviets. Others think the sub accidentally fired one of its own torpedoes during a training exercise and it turned back and hit the Scorpion, but unfortunately, we may never know for sure. In February of 1748, just before Valentine's Day, the Lady Lovibond set sail off the coast of England, heading home to celebrate the captain's wedding. But things got sour during the journey when the captain discovered that his bride-to-be was actually in love with his best friend. So the captain decided to take his own life, as well as everyone else on board, steering the ship straight into the Goodwin Sands. Everyone died in the disaster. And since that day, though, there have been sightings of a ship that looks eerily similar to the Lady Lovibond. Over the years, sailors have reported encounters with what seemed to be a ghost ship. Captains sailing near the Goodwin Sands have claimed to see a ship appear out of nowhere, only for it to vanish before they could reach it. Others have spotted what looked like a wrecked ship in the distance, only to find nothing when they get closer. The most famous story happened in the early 1900s though, when locals in Kent saw a 3-masted ship heading full speed toward the Goodwin Sands, and knowing it would crash, they rushed to help, but when they arrived, nothing was there. In 1906, the SS Valencia was caught in a violent storm off the coast of British Columbia, Canada. Rescue boats rushed to the scene and lifeboats were deployed, but only 37 people survived. Then in 1910, things took a strange turn. That year, people started claiming that they'd seen a phantom ship drifting in the area. Locals in British Columbia and fishermen out at sea were spotting lifeboats, and they were filled with skeletons. Many believe the ghostly lifeboats were somehow connected to the Valencia, and the creepy events didn't stop here either. In 1933, nearly 30 years after the Valencia sank, the ship's number 5 lifeboat was discovered completely intact in British Columbia's Barkley Sound. Despite being out in open ocean for decades, exposed to the harsh sea and salty water, the lifeboat showed no signs of wear or damage. When the rest of the wreckage of the Valencia was later found near a 100-foot-high bluff, no one could explain how that lifeboat survived so perfectly intact for so long. The mystery of the Valencia and its phantom lifeboats remains unsolved. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.